Vampire King saw his ex holding a baby at the bus stop, but didn't know that's actually his child. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a cold and overcast morning when Lily stepped off the bus, clutching the small bundle in her arms. The rain was light but persistent, tapping against her coat as she carefully adjusted the baby in her arms. Her heart was heavy, but there was no other choice. She had to make it through the day for her little boy's sake. He had been sick, but there was no money for a doctor and no one to help her. Lily looked down at the baby, her son, wrapped in the thick blanket she'd found at the local thrift shop. He was all she had left, and in that moment, the weight of everything she had lost seemed to press down on her chest. As she made her way across the bus stop, she didn't notice the tall, dark figure standing by the newsstand. His sharp eyes, cold as ice, were fixed on her, though she didn't see him yet. Adrian Black, the Vampire King, stood just a few steps away, disguised in a long coat, his hood pulled low to hide his features. He had spent the last few years trying to forget his past, trying to move on from the mistakes he had made. But as he saw her, standing there with a baby in her arms, something in him snapped. The image of Lily, his ex-lover, clutched tightly to their child, brought a flood of memories back. He had never forgotten her, never truly moved on, but he never expected to see her again like this. He hadn't known she was pregnant, hadn't known the child existed. His heart skipped a beat. The baby, though small and frail, had the same eyes as his own. Adrian's heart pounded as his mind raced, but he kept his distance. Lily had no idea he was standing there, watching her from the shadows. She continued to walk, her eyes fixed on the ground, lost in her thoughts. She didn't see Adrian following her at first, the weight of the world bearing down on her every step. She wasn't sure where she was going. Her life had become a series of meaningless motions, trying to survive another day. What was she even doing anymore? As she reached the sidewalk, the world around her seemed to blur. Adrian took another step closer, his eyes narrowing. He couldn't stay in the shadows forever. He had to know who this baby was. Who was the father? Why did the baby look so much like him? Without thinking, Adrian approached her. His presence made Lily's skin prickle, a chill running down her spine as she instinctively pulled her son closer. She turned, startled by the sudden figure standing in front of her. Adrian's eyes met hers, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence. The wind picked up, but neither of them moved. He couldn't bring himself to speak yet. She, on the other hand, had no idea who this man was. The look in his eyes, though, felt strangely familiar. For a split second, she thought she recognized him, but she quickly dismissed the thought. He was a stranger, someone who should have been nowhere near her or her child. "Are you okay?" Adrian finally asked, his voice softer than he intended. Lily hesitated, clutching the baby even tighter. Her eyes scanned his face, but something about him felt off. There was an intensity to him, an almost supernatural presence. It made her uneasy. She nodded, stepping back slightly. "I'm fine," she said quietly, unsure of how to react. Adrian's heart raced as he tried to keep his composure. He wasn't sure what to say, what to ask. "I just wanted to make sure." "You're alone?" he asked, though the question felt awkward and unnecessary. Lily gave a small, cautious smile, but she didn't trust him. "I'm fine," she repeated, trying to walk past him. But Adrian's gaze was unwavering. His mind was reeling with the possibilities. This baby, the one in her arms, it was his son. He was sure of it. But how? How had Lily kept this from him all these years? And why was she here, at this bus stop, with no one to help her? There was so much he didn't know, and yet, there was something undeniable in the air between them. He had to know more, had to find out what had happened to the child he never knew existed. But as Lily turned to leave, Adrian reached out and stopped her. "Wait," he said, his voice more urgent now. "Please, I need to know, who's the father?" Lily froze. The question hit her harder than she expected. Her heart raced as she glanced down at her baby, the one thing that connected her to the past she had tried to forget. She had to make a decision now, and the truth hung in the air like a heavy cloud. She took a deep breath before speaking. You wouldn't believe me if I told you, she whispered. Adrian's eyes narrowed, and his heart sank. He was about to hear something that would change everything. Adrian's heart was racing, his mind in a whirlwind as Lily's words echoed in his ears. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. The weight of her cryptic statement hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Adrian stood frozen, unable to speak. Lily wasn't looking at him now, her gaze focused on her child, who was wrapped securely in her arms. It was a moment of silent tension, the world around them seeming to hold its breath. Adrian's mind was working fast, trying to piece together everything he had seen, felt, and heard. He had to know more. He had to understand how she, the woman he had once loved, could be here, with his child in her arms. A child he never knew existed. He didn't know how or why, but his instincts were telling him that everything he had known before was about to change. Lily, he finally said, his voice softer than he intended. Please, you don't have to hide it anymore. I know this baby is mine. Lily's eyes flickered up at him, a mix of surprise and disbelief crossing her face. She didn't say anything at first, only held her son closer, as if instinctively protecting him from the man standing before her. Adrian stepped closer, his presence commanding yet gentle. He wasn't sure why he was so sure, but the connection he felt to the child was undeniable. The resemblance was striking. The baby's eyes, even though they were filled with innocence, reminded him so much of himself. How do you know? She whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. Adrian paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He hadn't expected to find himself in this situation, standing on the street corner, facing the woman he once loved, with the child he never knew he had. But now that he was here, there was no turning back. I saw the way he looked at me, Lily. His eyes, they're mine. And I've been watching you for a while now. I knew you hadn't moved on, not really. And I thought, no, I hoped, that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us, for him. Lily's eyes softened, the harshness in them fading as she took in his words. She looked down at her baby, her fingers gently stroking his tiny hand. It was clear she had been through so much on her own. Adrian could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the burden of carrying everything alone. He wanted to reach out to her, to tell her that it didn't have to be this way, but he didn't know how to begin. You don't understand, she said, shaking her head slightly. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what it's been like to raise him on my own, to struggle every day just to survive. I never wanted you to be a part of this. I didn't want to drag you back into this life. I couldn't. Adrian took a deep breath, trying to understand her pain. He had spent centuries learning how to be powerful, how to control everything around him. But there were still things he couldn't control, things he didn't understand. Lily, I never wanted to leave you. But I made mistakes, I know that now. I can't change the past, but I can try to make things right. I want to be here for you. I want to be here for him. She looked up at him again, this time with a mixture of hope and fear in her eyes. And what does that mean, Adrian? How can you make things right? We've been apart for years. And now you're just going to waltz back in and pretend like nothing happened. Adrian's heart sank. She was right, of course. He couldn't just waltz back into her life and expect everything to fall into place. He had a lot to make up for, a lot to prove, but he was willing to do whatever it took. No, Lily, I know I can't just come back and fix everything, but I can start by being here. I can be a father to him, to our son. I can give him the life he deserves. And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you don't have to struggle alone anymore. Lily looked at him, her gaze softening as she considered his words. It wasn't an easy decision for her, and Adrian could see that. But he also saw the flicker of something, maybe hope, maybe relief, in her eyes. He had broken her trust once, but maybe, just maybe, he could rebuild it. I don't know if I can trust you again, Adrian, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'll give you a chance. For him. Adrian nodded, a wave of gratitude washing over him. Thank you, Lily. I won't let you down. As the silence settled around them, Adrian couldn't help but feel a shift in the air, a new chapter beginning. He wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose. And that purpose was standing right in front of him, with his son in her arms. Adrian watched as Lily hesitated, her gaze shifting from him to the baby in her arms. The weight of the moment settled heavily between them, but there was no turning back now. He had made a promise, and he would keep it. He had to. Lily, he said again, softer this time, his voice filled with determination. I know I've lost your trust. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm here now. I want to be part of his life, our son's life. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Lily's face softened, but the doubt was still there, clear in her eyes. She had been alone for so long, had raised her son by herself, and the idea of opening up to someone again, especially someone from her past, was terrifying. She had been hurt before. She had trusted before. And now, she had to decide whether to let him back in. Adrian, she whispered, her voice barely audible. It's not just about trust. It's about what's best for him. For our son. Adrian felt his heart tighten at the mention of their son. The child he never knew existed. The child he could have been there for if only he hadn't made so many mistakes. I get that, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. And that's why I'm here. To make sure he has a better life. To make sure you don't have to struggle anymore. Lily looked down at the baby, her fingers gently brushing his tiny hand. She had raised him in secret, had kept him away from the dangers of the world, and she couldn't risk bringing him into something more dangerous. What if you bring danger? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. What if you bring your world into his life, and it ruins everything? Adrian understood her fears. He knew what she was thinking. His world was dangerous, filled with enemies, dark magic, and hidden agendas. But he also knew that he had a responsibility now, not just as a vampire king, but as a father. I won't bring him into danger, Adrian said firmly. I swear. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you both safe. I will protect him, and I will protect you. I won't let anything happen to either of you. That's my promise. Lily studied him carefully, searching for any hint of insincerity, but all she saw was the man who once held her heart and now seemed so different. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he had changed. She didn't know, but she wanted to believe him. For their son's sake, she had to believe in something. All right, she said softly, her voice breaking slightly. But you have to understand, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for him. Adrian nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. I understand. And I'll prove to you every day that I'm doing this for him too. They stood there for a few moments, neither of them knowing exactly what came next. The air between them was thick with emotions they had buried for years. Love, regret, hope. But the silence was broken when Lily took a deep breath and looked up at him. There's a lot we need to talk about. A lot you need to know. But we can't do it here, not like this. Adrian agreed, his mind already working on how to make things right. Let's go somewhere safe, he suggested. Somewhere we can talk without anyone listening. Lily hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She couldn't do this in the open, not with people watching, not with the weight of their past hanging over them. She needed time, and more than that, she needed to see if Adrian could really be the man he promised to be. As they walked down the street, Adrian couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. He had not only promised to protect Lily and their son, but he had also promised himself that he would never let them go again. He had a lot of work to do, but first, he had to earn their trust. He had to prove that he was worthy of being in their lives. He didn't know how long that would take, but he was willing to wait. For the first time in years, Adrian felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. Lily, on the other hand, was filled with doubt and fear, but also a small flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the fresh start they both needed. But only time would tell if Adrian could truly change. As they reached a quiet, secluded park, Adrian turned to Lily and spoke with quiet resolve. We're in this together now. You and me and him. He looked at the baby in her arms, his eyes filled with tenderness. I'll make sure you're not alone. I'll make sure he has the future he deserves. Lily looked at him, the weight of the decision still heavy on her heart. But for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that things could be different. That maybe, just maybe, they could be a family. And as the three of them walked into the park, Adrian knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let anything tear them apart again. Adrian followed closely behind Lily as they walked through the quiet park, his mind racing with thoughts of the future. There was so much he needed to do, so much he had to prove. But for now, the only thing that mattered was getting to know his son. He couldn't deny the overwhelming feeling of responsibility that washed over him. This child, this little boy, was his, and Adrian had a duty to protect him, to provide for him. He had no idea how to be a father, but he was determined to figure it out. Lily glanced over her shoulder, making sure they weren't being followed. She was nervous, not just because of the situation with Adrian, but because of the weight of everything. Her past, the secrets she had kept, the struggles she had faced as a single mother. It all felt like too much to handle, especially now that Adrian was back in her life. "Are you sure this is safe?" she asked quietly, her voice laced with concern. Adrian gave her a reassuring nod. "We're fine," he said. "No one will find us here." The park was empty, save for a few late-night joggers in the distance. The soft rustling of the leaves and the chirping of crickets filled the silence between them. It was peaceful, calming, but for Lily, it was hard to shake the feeling that things were about to change in ways she couldn't predict. As they reached a small bench under a tree, Lily hesitated before sitting down. She carefully placed her son on her lap, gently rocking him as she looked up at Adrian. "I still don't understand why you're here, Adrian," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Why now? After all this time, why do you care now? You walked away from me, from us." Adrian took a deep breath, his chest tightening with guilt. He had made so many mistakes in the past, and he knew there was no easy way to fix them. "I know I failed you, Lily," he said, his voice steady but filled with regret. "I never should have left. I should have been there for you, for our son. I was wrong, and I can't change the past. But I can be here now. I can be part of his life, and yours. I won't make the same mistakes again." Lily's eyes softened, but the hurt was still there, lingering beneath the surface. "How can I trust you, Adrian?" she whispered. "How can I believe that you won't leave again, that you won't hurt us again?" Adrian stepped forward, kneeling in front of her, his eyes pleading. "I swear I won't leave. Not again. I won't ever walk away from you or him. I'll prove it to you. Every day." For a moment, Lily didn't say anything. She just stared at him, her thoughts racing. Could she really believe him? Could she really trust him again? She didn't know. But she also knew that she couldn't do this alone. She had carried the weight of the world on her shoulders for so long, and the thought of sharing it with someone again, especially him, was both terrifying and comforting. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "I don't know, Adrian. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can let you back in." Adrian's heart sank, but he didn't pull away. He stayed there, his hands resting gently on her knees, his eyes never leaving hers. "I understand," he said softly. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness right now. All I'm asking is for a chance to prove that I can be the man you need, the father our son deserves." Lily looked down at her son, her fingers brushing his soft hair. He was so small, so innocent. She had worked so hard to protect him from the dangers of the world, and she couldn't bear the thought of letting anyone, especially Adrian, hurt him. But a small part of her wanted to believe him. A small part of her wanted to believe that this time could be different. "You're right," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He deserves more. We both do." Adrian smiled, the first genuine smile he had given in what felt like a lifetime. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I'll be here," he said firmly, "for both of you, and I won't let anything come between us." Lily didn't respond right away. She wasn't ready to fully trust him, not yet, but she was willing to give him a chance. For her son, for herself. She looked at Adrian, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I'm not sure what happens next," she said quietly, "but I'll give you that chance. To prove it." Adrian nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Lily. You won't regret this." For the first time in a long time, Adrian felt like he had a purpose. And as he sat there beside her, with their son in her arms, he knew he would do whatever it took to protect them, to make things right. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, Adrian felt hopeful. Hopeful that he could be the man he needed to be. Hopeful that he could build a future for them, one where he wouldn't let the past define him. As they sat in the quiet park, the world around them seemed to fade away. For just a moment, it was just the three of them, Lily, Adrian, and their son, starting anew, with the promise of a different future. As the days passed, the tension between Adrian and Lily began to ease, but there was still so much left unsaid. Lily had agreed to give him a chance, but trust was a fragile thing, and the walls she had built around her heart weren't so easily torn down. Every time Adrian stepped closer, every time he made a promise, she felt a flicker of hope, but also a pang of fear. Would he leave again? Or would this time be different? Adrian, on the other hand, was determined to prove himself. He had spent years in darkness, hiding from his past, but now, he had something to fight for, someone to fight for. His son, his family. He was a vampire king, a powerful being, but in this new chapter of his life, the greatest challenge wasn't defeating enemies or ruling his kingdom. It was earning the love and trust of the woman he had wronged and the child he didn't even know existed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Adrian found himself sitting across from Lily in her small apartment. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, but for once, there was a sense of quiet calm. Lily had made dinner, a simple meal, but to Adrian, it felt like a small act of peace in a world that had been chaotic for so long. He had been accustomed to wealth, to luxury, but sitting here, with Lily and their son, he realized that the things that mattered most were the things money couldn't buy. He watched as Lily fed their son, the way her eyes softened when she looked at him. It was clear she loved him deeply, but Adrian also saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight of raising a child alone for so long. "You don't have to do this alone anymore," Adrian said quietly, breaking the silence. Lily glanced up at him, her expression unreadable. "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But that doesn't mean everything will be okay. I'm still not sure I can trust you." Adrian nodded, understanding her hesitation. "I get it, and I won't push you, but I want you to know that I'm here. For you. For him." Lily's eyes softened, but there was still a guardedness there. She wasn't ready to let go of her fears, not yet. Adrian stood up and walked over to where she sat her day. "I don't know what the future holds, Lily, but I do know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to leave you again." The words were simple, but they held so much weight. Lily looked up at him, her heart pounding. Could she really believe him this time? Could she really trust him? Adrian reached out, gently taking her hand in his. It was a small gesture, but it meant more than anything. He didn't need to say anything more. She could feel the sincerity in his touch. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry for everything I've done." Lily didn't speak right away. She had so many emotions swirling inside her, so many thoughts and fears, but as she looked at Adrian, she realized that he wasn't the man he used to be. He wasn't the man who had left her all those years ago. Maybe, just maybe, he was the man he had promised to be. "You don't have to be sorry," Lily said softly. "You just need to be here. You need to prove that you're really here. For us." Adrian nodded, his heart swelling with emotion. "I will. I promise." As the night went on, the tension between them slowly melted away, replaced by a sense of tentative peace. They didn't have all the answers, and they didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, they were willing to take the next step. The next step toward building a family, toward building something real. Lily looked at Adrian, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I never thought this would happen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd be sitting here with you, like this." Adrian smiled, the warmth in his eyes reaching his soul. "Neither did I," he said. "But here we are, and I'm not going anywhere." They sat together in the quiet, the only sound the soft breathing of their son as he slept peacefully in Lily's arms. Adrian had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. With Lily, with their son, the family he never knew he could have. And as the moonlight filtered through the window, Adrian made a silent promise to himself. No matter what it took, he would be there for them. He would never leave. And this time, he would prove it. The road ahead would be difficult, but with Lily and their son by his side, Adrian felt ready to face anything. It wasn't just about being the vampire king anymore. It was about being the man they needed him to be, and he was determined to rise to that challenge. As the days passed, Adrian kept his promise. He was there, every day, proving to Lily that he wasn't going anywhere. Their son, a small bundle of innocence and light, became the center of their world, and despite the tension that had initially existed between Adrian and Lily, there was a sense of calm starting to form. Lily, for the first time in years, allowed herself to breathe a little easier. She had spent so long on her own, in survival mode, that the idea of letting someone back in was terrifying. But Adrian hadn't just shown up and expected everything to fall into place. He had shown up and proved, day after day, that he was ready to be the father his son deserved. That he was ready to be the man Lily had always hoped he could be. It wasn't easy. They had moments of doubt, moments when the past seemed too heavy to overcome. But they also had moments of quiet joy. Watching Adrian interact with their son, seeing him care for him with such tenderness, made Lily realize that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. One evening, as the sun began to set, Adrian and Lily sat together in the living room. Their son was asleep in the next room, the soft sounds of his breathing filling the silence between them. Lily was curled up on the couch, and Adrian sat beside her, a little closer than usual. "I still can't believe this is real," Lily said, her voice soft. "I spent so long doing everything on my own. And now here you are, back in my life. And not just back in my life, but in our son's life." Adrian looked at her, his expression serious. "I know, and I'm not going to mess this up. I've made too many mistakes in the past, but this is different. This is everything. I'm not going anywhere, Lily. Not again." She could hear the sincerity in his voice. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe him. Maybe they had a chance at a new beginning. But there were still things that weighed heavily on her heart. "I don't know if I can forgive you completely," she said quietly, looking away for a moment. "The past still hurts. I spent so many nights wondering what went wrong, why you left. And now, with him here, I don't know if I can fully trust that you won't leave again." Adrian reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Lily, I can't change what I did, but I can change what happens next. I won't leave again. I won't make the same mistake twice." Lily looked at him, her heart torn. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to be able to trust him again. But the fear of getting hurt, of being left alone again, still lingered. "I want to believe you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I've been hurt before, and it's hard to just forget that." Adrian squeezed her hand gently. "I know, Lily, and I don't expect you to forget. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I'm here, every day, and I'll prove it to you, little by little. I'll show you that I'm not going anywhere. And I'll show our son that he has a father who loves him." A tear slipped down Lily's cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things could be different this time. Maybe they could have the family they both wanted. "I don't know what happens next," Lily said softly, her eyes meeting his. "But for him, I'll try. I'll try to believe in us again." Adrian leaned in, his lips brushing her forehead in a tender kiss. "Thank you, Lily. I won't let you down." And as the evening wore on, the two of them sat together, the weight of the past still lingering but no longer suffocating them. They were taking things one step at a time, rebuilding what they had lost. But with every passing day, Adrian could feel the walls around Lily's heart beginning to crack. He knew it would take time, but he was willing to wait. He was willing to prove to her that he was the man she had always needed. And as they sat together in the quiet of the night, with their son safe and sound in the next room, Adrian knew that this was just the beginning. A beginning of something new, something worth fighting for. He wasn't just the vampire king anymore. He was a father, and he would do whatever it took to protect his family. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, Adrian found himself more and more immersed in the life he had once abandoned. The world of his vampire kingdom, with its politics, schemes, and old battles, felt distant now. His focus had shifted entirely to Lily and their son. There were moments when he would wake up in the middle of the night, hearing the soft, rhythmic breathing of his son in the next room, and for the first time in centuries, he felt at peace. Lily, too, had started to soften, her walls slowly crumbling as Adrian showed her, time and again, that he was committed to this new life, to their family. But it wasn't without its challenges. One morning, as Lily stood by the kitchen sink, washing dishes, she felt a familiar unease settle in her chest. The baby had just fallen asleep, and Adrian had left for a meeting earlier in the day. A knock on the door broke her from her thoughts. She dried her hands quickly, glancing toward the door. It was early, and she hadn't expected anyone. When she opened it, she was startled to find a woman standing on the other side. The woman was tall, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders. She wore a coat that seemed far too expensive for the neighborhood, and her eyes were cold, calculating. "Lily Black," the woman said, her voice smooth and authoritative. "I'm here to speak to you." Lily's stomach dropped. She knew something was off. "I'm sorry, but do I know you?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I don't believe we've met," she said. "But I know a great deal about you. About your son, too." The words hit Lily like a punch to the gut. What do you want? Lily asked, her mind racing. The woman stepped forward, her gaze never leaving Lily's face. I've come to warn you. You're not safe here, and neither is your son. The words were like ice in Lily's veins. What are you talking about? She demanded, her voice rising. The woman seemed unfazed by Lily's outburst. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to tell you that Adrian's past is coming back to haunt you both. The enemies he made long ago won't stop until they destroy everything he loves. And now, that includes you and your child. Lily stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard rumors about Adrian's past, but she never expected it to come knocking on her door like this. Who are you? Lily asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman's smile deepened. I'm someone who knows the truth. I know what Adrian did, and I know what he's capable of. And I'm here to make sure you and your son stay out of the crossfire. The words lingered in the air between them, thick with unspoken threats. Lily stepped back, her mind spinning. She had promised Adrian that she would trust him, that she would believe in the life they were building together. But now, standing in front of this mysterious woman, all of her fears resurfaced. Why are you telling me this? Lily asked, her voice shaky. The woman's smile twisted into something colder. Because, Lily, you need to understand the danger you're in. The world Adrian has pulled you into is a world of darkness, a world of power and blood, and there's no going back. If you want to protect your son, you need to walk away from him. From Adrian. Before it's too late. Lily's heart raced. The woman's words were seeping into her mind, feeding her deepest fears. Could it be true? Was Adrian really that dangerous? Was their son really in danger because of Adrian's past? I don't want to hear any more of this, Lily said, her voice firm now, despite the fear gnawing at her insides. I'm not going anywhere. Adrian has changed. He's here for us. The woman tilted her head, studying Lily with cold eyes. If you think that, you're already in over your head. Don't say I didn't warn you. Without another word, the woman turned and walked away, disappearing into the distance. Lily stood there, her mind reeling. She closed the door slowly, her hands trembling. What was she supposed to believe? The woman's warning echoed in her mind, but Lily refused to let fear take hold of her. She had come so far with Adrian, and she couldn't let some stranger tear that away from her. But she knew one thing for sure. The past wasn't done with them yet. And now, they would have to face whatever darkness was coming together. Meanwhile, Adrian was fighting battles of his own, unaware of the storm brewing outside their door. His enemies, long forgotten by him, were starting to take notice. And he knew that it was only a matter of time before everything he had worked for, everything he had promised to protect, would be tested. The next few days were filled with tension. Lily couldn't shake the ominous warning the mysterious woman had given her. Every time Adrian came home, his presence brought both a sense of comfort and an undercurrent of unease. She wanted to believe that they could be a family, that everything could be as it seemed, but the woman's words haunted her. The idea that Adrian's past could tear apart the fragile peace they had begun to build kept her awake at night. She tried to push it out of her mind, focusing instead on the small moments. The sound of Adrian reading to their son, the way their child would smile when Adrian held him, the soft touch of his hand as he reassured her everything would be okay. But deep down, the questions lingered. What if this was too good to be true? What if Adrian's enemies were already too close? One afternoon, Adrian left for what he called an important meeting, and Lily found herself alone with her thoughts. She sat by the window, watching as the rain drizzled outside, the soft patter against the glacé. Reminder that something was coming. The doorbell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. She opened it cautiously, half expecting the woman from the other day, but this time, it was someone different. A man stood in the doorway, tall and imposing, his dark eyes cold and calculating. His appearance immediately made her uneasy, but his smile was chillingly charming. "Miss Black," he said with a slight bow, his voice smooth. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I believe we need to talk." Lily stood frozen, her heart pounding. She didn't know this man, and the last thing she wanted was to be pulled deeper into the world of Adrian's enemies. "What do you want?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The man glanced over his shoulder before stepping inside, without waiting for her response. "I'm here because you need to understand the gravity of the situation," he said, his tone calm but dangerous. "Adrian's past isn't just a shadow. It's a storm. And it's coming for you and your son. Lily's stomach dropped. I don't want any part of this, she said quickly, trying to shut the door, but the man was too fast, his hand catching it before it could close. You don't have a choice, he said, his grip tightening. This isn't about choice, it's about survival. His words were like a slap to the face, and Lily's hands trembled as she stepped back. I know you're scared, he continued, his eyes boring into hers. But what you need to understand is that Adrian's enemies don't care about your happiness. They want to break him, and they'll use anyone to do it, especially you. Lily backed away, her pulse racing. I don't want your threats, she snapped, though her voice wavered. I don't know who you are, but I know Adrian would never. Adrian, the man interrupted, his smirk growing wider. Adrian doesn't care about you, Lily. You're just a pawn in his game, and when the time comes, he will let you fall. It's who he is. It's what he does. He doesn't know how to protect anyone, especially not you or your son. The words hit like a dagger to her heart. You're wrong, Lily whispered, shaking her head. You're wrong about him. The man chuckled darkly, clearly amused by her defiance. Am I? Then ask yourself this. Why did he leave you in the first place? Why didn't he come back for you? Why did he walk away from everything he claimed to love? Lily's breath caught in her throat, the old pain resurfacing. She had asked herself those very questions for years. And now, this man was twisting that pain, making it feel like the truth. She wanted to believe in Adrian, to believe that he had changed. But the doubt planted by this man was like a seed in her heart, growing with each word. I don't care what you say, Lily finally replied, finding some strength in her words. I love him, and I trust him. The man's expression soured. That's your choice, of course. But mark my words, Lily, this won't end well. You can run from it, you can ignore it, but sooner or later, you'll have to face the truth. Adrian can't protect you from what's coming. With those final words, he turned and walked out, leaving Lily standing there, her world spinning. The room felt colder, and her thoughts were a chaotic mess. Could this man be right? Was Adrian really capable of leaving her again, of betraying her when she needed him most? For a moment, Lily felt herself wavering, torn between her love for Adrian and the painful reality of his past. But as she stood there, staring out the window, she realized something. No matter what threats came their way, no matter what dangers lurked in the shadows, she couldn't let fear dictate her choices. She had to trust Adrian. She had to believe in their future, for her son's sake, and for her own. She couldn't let the past hold her hostage. Adrian's enemies may have been closing in, but she was done running from them. She would face whatever came with him by her side, or without him. She would protect her family. She would not be a pawn in anyone's game. The next morning, Lily sat quietly at the kitchen table, the silence of the apartment pressing down on her. She had barely slept the night before, her mind spinning with the man's words, the warning that Adrian's past was coming for them. Every time she closed her eyes, the cold, calculating gaze of the stranger appeared in her mind. She tried to push the fear aside, but it lingered, like a shadow she couldn't shake. Adrian had returned late last night, and she had barely spoken a word to him. She had tried to act normal, but something had shifted. The trust she had been rebuilding was now clouded with doubt. She didn't want to feel this way. She didn't want to question Adrian, especially when he had been nothing but loving and present in the days since he'd returned. But the words kept echoing in her head. What if he is still the man who walked away? What if his past catches up to him, and we're dragged into it, too? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Adrian's footsteps. He entered the kitchen, his eyes immediately falling on her. Good morning, he said softly, his voice filled with warmth. But Lily could sense the change in him, too. He had felt the distance between them. Morning, she replied, her voice quieter than usual. Adrian stood still for a moment, watching her, before taking a step closer. What's going on, Lily? He asked gently. You've been distant these past few days. Lily hesitated, unsure of how to put her thoughts into words. She wanted to tell him everything, the fear, the doubt, the warning. But she didn't know how to say it without sounding like she was accusing him. I'm fine, she said, forcing a smile. Just tired. Adrian's eyes searched hers, seeing through her. You're not fine, he said, his voice firm now. Talk to me. What's bothering you? Lily bit her lip, feeling the weight of everything that had happened in the last few days. Finally, she let out a deep breath. Someone came to see me yesterday, she said, her voice trembling. A woman. She told me that you. She paused, the words sticking in her throat. That you're not who I think you are? That your past is coming for us. Adrian's face hardened slightly, but he didn't look surprised. Who was she? He asked, his voice low. What did she say? Lily's heart pounded as she recounted the conversation, the words spilling out of her before she could stop them. She said that you left me for a reason, that you walked away from everything, and that now your enemies are coming for us. That we're just pawns in your game. Adrian took a step back, his jaw tightening. Lily, he struggled for a moment, as if searching for the right words. I never wanted you to be involved in my world. I wanted to protect you from it. But the truth is, my past isn't something I can escape. It's a part of who I am. Lily's heart sank. She had suspected that Adrian's past was dangerous, but hearing him confirm it was a blow she wasn't ready for. You didn't want me to be involved? She asked, her voice trembling. Then why did you come back? Why didn't you leave me alone? Adrian's expression softened. He stepped forward, gently cupping her face with his hand. I came back because I couldn't stay away, he said quietly. I was a fool to leave you, to let you raise our son on your own. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away, refusing to let them fall. How can I believe you? She whispered. How can I trust you when I don't know what your past is really capable of? Adrian's eyes darkened, a flicker of pain crossing his face. I'm not asking you to forget the past, Lily, he said softly. But I need you to trust that I've changed. I've spent centuries alone, consumed by the darkness of my past. But when I met you again, when I saw our son, I knew I had a chance to be different. To be better. For you, for him. He paused, his thumb brushing gently against her cheek. I can't promise that my past won't catch up with us. But I can promise that I will fight for you both. Every day. Lily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him with everything in her heart. But fear still lingered, a constant companion. I don't want to be afraid anymore, she whispered. I want to believe in us. I want to believe that this can be our future. Adrian took a deep breath, his gaze softening. I will prove it to you, Lily. I'll show you every day that I'm not the man I used to be. That I'm here for you, for our son. I won't let anything tear us apart. Lily looked into his eyes, searching for any hint of the man she had once loved, and the man he had become. For the first time in days, she saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. She knew it wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead would be filled with obstacles. But with Adrian by her side, maybe they could face whatever came next. She took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, she said softly. I'll trust you. I'll trust us. Adrian's face softened, and he pulled her into an embrace. Thank you, he whispered. You won't regret this. I promise. As they held each other, the world outside seemed to fade away. They still didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, Lily felt that maybe, just maybe, they could face it together. With Adrian's past lingering in the shadows, the danger wasn't gone, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to face it alone. As the days passed, the uncertainty continued to loom over Lily and Adrian. The fragile peace they had started to build seemed to be constantly tested by the weight of Adrian's past, the looming threats from his enemies, and the lingering doubts in Lily's heart. Despite the moments of tenderness they shared, a dark cloud seemed to hang over them, especially as the tension between them started to grow. Lily knew that Adrian was doing his best, but every time the doorbell rang or someone knocked on the door, her heart would race with fear, wondering if it was another message, another threat. She couldn't escape the nagging thought that, no matter how hard they tried to move forward, the past was never truly behind them. One evening, as she sat alone in their small living room, holding their son, the doorbell rang again. It was late, and she hadn't expected anyone. Adrian had gone out to take care of some business, leaving her alone with their child. The sound of the doorbell was sharp, cutting through the silence of the room, and Lily felt her heart skip a beat. She stood slowly, her mind racing with thoughts of who it might be. Was it one of Adrian's enemies? Was it the woman who had warned her before? She couldn't take the risk. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts, and walked toward the door. As she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Standing before her was Adrian, but something was different about him. He looked disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, his expression tense, as though he had just come from a battle. His eyes were filled with urgency, and his presence was more commanding than usual. "Lily," he said quickly, his voice low. "We need to talk. It's not safe here anymore." Lily's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. Adrian stepped inside, his gaze scanning the room quickly, before he closed the door behind him. "There's something I haven't told you," he began, his voice steady but filled with a sense of urgency. "My enemies, they found us. They know about you, about our son. It's only a matter of time before they make their move." Lily's heart raced as she processed his words. She felt a chill run down her spine, and for the first time since Adrian had come back into her life, she felt truly afraid. She had known that his past was dangerous, but hearing him speak of it so openly made the reality of their situation hit her like a ton of bricks. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but we need to get out of here. They've been watching us, and if we stay, it won't be long before they make their move." Lily looked down at their son, sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware of the danger that was now closing in on them. "I can't run, Adrian," she said, her voice firm. "I can't keep running from this. We've already been through so much. I can't just pack up and leave. Not again. Not with him." Adrian stepped forward, his expression softening. "I know, Lily. I don't want to make you leave, but we have no choice. If we stay here, they'll come for us, and I won't let anything happen to you or our son. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. But we have to go now." Lily's mind raced as she thought of what to do. She had lived her whole life trying to protect her son, trying to keep him safe from the world that had hurt her. Now, the one person she had trusted to help her, to protect them, was telling her that the danger was too great, that they needed to run. She couldn't ignore the fear in Adrian's eyes. He had never looked this vulnerable before, and for the first time, Lily realized that his world wasn't just dangerous for him. It was dangerous for them, too. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside her. "We'll leave. But where will we go? Where is safe?" Adrian's gaze darkened. "I have a place. A safe house. It's far away from here. I'll take you there." The thought of leaving everything behind, of leaving the life they had tried to build, filled Lily with sorrow. But she knew it was the only way to protect her son. The world she had known was gone, and now she had to face the reality that their lives had been forever changed. "Let me pack a few things," Lily said, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside her. Adrian nodded, and as Lily turned to gather their things, her heart ached with the weight of what she was about to leave behind. But she couldn't let fear control her. She had to be strong, for their son. Adrian was right. They couldn't stay. They had to move quickly, to get somewhere safe before it was too late. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to face it alone. As she packed, Adrian stood by the door, watching her with a mixture of concern and determination. He had promised to protect her and their son, and now, he was going to keep that promise, no matter the cost. The danger was closing in, but together, they would face it. And no matter what happened, they would survive. The journey to the safe house was tense, the silence between Adrian and Lily hanging heavy in the air. They had packed quickly, gathering what little they could carry, but even then, there was an undeniable sense of urgency. Every moment felt like it could be their last in the place they had once considered safe. Adrian drove in the front seat, his eyes constantly scanning the rearview mirror, ever watchful of anyone who might be following them. Lily sat beside him, her hands tightly gripping the bag she had packed for their son, her mind racing with the what-ifs. The baby was sound asleep in the back seat, blissfully unaware of the dangers looming ahead. Lily couldn't help but watch him, her heart heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. She had promised to protect him, to give him a life free from fear, but she wondered if it was even possible. They had already faced so much, and now, Adrian's past had come back to haunt them. She wasn't sure if they could outrun it. She wasn't sure if they could outrun what was coming. "Adrian," she finally said, her voice breaking the silence. "What exactly is happening? Who are these people after us?" Adrian's grip on the steering wheel tightened, his jaw setting in a hard line. "They're people from my past," he said quietly, his voice filled with frustration. "Old enemies, people who never let go of grudges. They don't care about right or wrong. They care about power. And they want to take everything I've worked for. That includes you, Lily." And our son. Lily swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking deep into her. But you said we'd be safe. You promised me. Adrian's eyes flickered to hers for a split second before returning to the road. I know, he said softly. And I meant it. I will do whatever it takes to protect you both. But we can't stay in one place for long. They'll find us if we do. Lily looked out the window, her thoughts swirling in a chaotic storm. She wanted to believe Adrian. She really did. But the fear that had gripped her the moment the stranger had knocked on her door was still there, gnawing at her. What if Adrian couldn't protect them? What if his enemies were too powerful, too relentless? Where are we going? She asked quietly, her voice tinged with fear. Adrian took a deep breath, his expression softening for a moment. We're going to a place far from here. Somewhere isolated, where no one will find us. It's the safest option right now. Lily nodded, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She knew they couldn't stay where they were, but the thought of leaving everything behind, of running from the life they had tried to rebuild, left a bitter taste in her mouth. Still, she had no choice. Adrian was right. They had to stay ahead of whatever was coming. The next few hours felt like an eternity, the car humming steadily on the road as they drove further into the unknown. Eventually, they reached a secluded cabin nestled deep in the woods, far away from the prying eyes of the city. The isolation was both a blessing and a curse. It was safe, but it also felt like a prison. Adrian parked the car and turned off the engine, the silence once again settling between them. Lily couldn't help but feel a sense of dread building inside her. This place was supposed to be safe, but she knew that the danger hadn't gone away. It had only shifted, becoming more real, more immediate. She glanced over at Adrian, who was already getting out of the car, his movements swift and purposeful. Stay here with him, he said, his voice firm. I'll check the perimeter. Make sure everything's secure. Lily nodded, her heart heavy in her chest. She wanted to argue, to say that she should go with him, but she knew he was right. She needed to stay put, for their son's sake. Adrian closed the door behind him, leaving her alone with their baby. The wind rustled through the trees, a soft, eerie sound that only added to the tension hanging in the air. Lily held her son close, her eyes constantly scanning the shadows around them. Every noise, every movement seemed to set her on edge. Her mind kept racing, replaying every conversation, every warning she had received. Would they be safe here? Or was this just another hiding place, a temporary solution to a problem that wouldn't go away? She didn't know how long they could keep running. Her thoughts were interrupted when Adrian returned a few minutes later, his face tense. It's secure, he said, his voice low. But we need to stay vigilant. I don't know how much time we have before they catch up with us. Lily nodded, her hands trembling as she adjusted their son in her arms. I won't let anything happen to you, Adrian added, stepping closer and gently taking her hand. I promise. We'll get through this. The sincerity in his voice was comforting, but it couldn't erase the fear that still clung to her heart. As they stood there, in the quiet of the cabin, the world outside seemed so far away. But Lily knew the danger was still out there, lurking just beyond the trees. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: the fight was far from over. The cabin was quiet, the only sound the rustling of the trees outside. Adrian paced the room, his thoughts a whirlwind as he tried to focus. Lily sat on the couch, their son sleeping peacefully in her arms, a tiny, innocent figure that brought so much peace to her troubled heart. Adrian could see how much she had changed since they arrived. She had once been full of doubt and fear, but now, in the stillness of this remote cabin, there was a sense of resolve in her eyes. But even that couldn't erase the tension in the air. Adrian knew that this wasn't just about keeping Lily and their son safe. It was about a war, a fight that had been brewing long before he had even met her. His enemies were ruthless, and they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. He couldn't let that happen. He wouldn't let that happen. Adrian. Lily's voice cut through his thoughts. He looked over to see her watching him, her face soft but concerned. Are you okay? You've been on edge since we got here. Adrian paused for a moment, taking in her words. He knew she was right. He was wound tighter than he had ever been, and every little sound set him on edge. His past was catching up to him, and no matter how much he wanted to protect her and their son, he knew there was a storm coming, one that would shake them all to the core. He took a deep breath. Walking over to where she sat. I'm fine, he said, though the lie didn't come easily. just worried about what's coming. We need to be prepared. I don't know how long we can stay here before they catch up. Lily nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. I know, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking the same thing. But I can't keep living like this, Adrian. Hiding, running. I need to know that we have a chance. That there's a way out of this. Her words hit him like a dagger, a reminder of how much she had sacrificed. She had given up everything for him, for their son. She had trusted him, and now, she was asking for more than just survival. She wanted a future. And that was something Adrian couldn't promise. Not yet. Not while the danger still lurked in the shadows. We will have a future, he said firmly, kneeling in front of her. I won't let them take that from us. I swear to you. Lily's eyes softened, and for a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. But the reality of the situation hung heavy between them, the weight of their uncertain future pressing down on their shoulders. She looked down at their son, still asleep in her arms. He deserves a life without fear, she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. He deserves to know that he's safe, that we're safe. Adrian's heart ached at the sight of the tiny child, so vulnerable, so innocent. He had never known this kind of love before, this deep connection to another human being. His son was everything to him now, and he would die to protect him. I promise you, Adrian said, his voice unwavering. I will do whatever it takes to make sure he grows up safe. No one will harm him. No one will hurt you again. The sincerity in his words made Lily believe him, if only for a moment. She reached out, placing her hand on his cheek. I believe you, Adrian, she said softly. But we can't keep running. We need to face this, together. Adrian nodded, his chest tightening with the weight of her words. I agree, he said quietly. But right now, we don't have a choice. We have to stay one step ahead of them, or we'll lose everything. They sat in silence for a moment, the tension still hanging in the air. Adrian knew that the calm they were experiencing now was just the eye of the storm. He had no illusions about what was coming. His enemies were closing in, and there was no escaping the consequences of his past. The only thing he could do now was make sure that Lily and their son were ready. I'm going to find out more about their plans, Adrian said, his voice determined. I have connections, people who can help. But I need you to stay here and keep him safe. Lily didn't hesitate. I'm not going anywhere, she said, her voice resolute. I'll stay here, but you need to promise me something. Adrian looked at her, waiting for her to continue. Promise me that you won't put yourself in danger for me. I can't lose you again, Adrian. I can't go through that again. Her words hit him harder than he expected, a sharp reminder of all the pain they had both endured. I promise, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I won't take any unnecessary risks. I'll do everything I can to protect you both. As the night grew darker, Adrian stood, his mind already working on the next steps. He couldn't afford to waste time. The threat was real, and they had to move quickly. But in the quiet of the cabin, with Lily and their son, he felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. Maybe they could survive this. Maybe, just maybe, they could make it through the storm. But he knew one thing for sure. They couldn't do it alone. Together, they would face whatever came next. And no matter what it took, Adrian would keep his promise. The days turned into a blur as Adrian worked tirelessly to gather information, moving in and out of the shadows, speaking to his contacts, and trying to stay one step ahead of the enemies who were closing in. But despite his best efforts, the tension only grew. Lily, though determined to keep their son safe, could see the weariness in Adrian's eyes, the constant stress that weighed him down. She wanted to believe that they were doing the right thing, but every time she looked out the window, every time she heard a noise, her fear would flare up again. One morning, as the sun barely rose, Adrian returned to the cabin, his face grim, his jaw clenched. Lily was sitting by the window with their son in her arms, watching the trees sway in the wind, trying to find some peace in the quiet. When she saw Adrian's face, her heart sank. She knew something had changed. What's going on? She asked, standing quickly. Adrian didn't say anything at first, his gaze flicking between her and their son. He walked over to them, sitting down beside Lily and placing a hand on her shoulder. It's worse than I thought, he said quietly, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. They're not just after me. They're coming for you both. They know about the baby. They know everything. Lily felt the breath catch in her throat, her mind reeling at the implications. What do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with fear. Adrian's eyes locked with hers, the weight of the situation pressing down on them both. "We run. We have no choice," he said, his voice firm, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "I have a plan, but it's risky. We need to move now, before they find us." Lily nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't want to leave, didn't want to run any longer, but she knew Adrian was right. They had no choice. The danger was too great. She stood up, carefully placing their son in his crib, making sure he was asleep. Her hands shook as she quickly packed their things, moving in a blur of motion. Adrian was already preparing to leave, grabbing the bag that held their essentials and checking their escape route. Lily didn't speak as they moved through the cabin, the tension thick between them. She knew the moment they left, there was no turning back. But she was ready. As they stepped out into the cold morning air, the world around them felt different, more dangerous, but also somehow freer. The trees swayed in the breeze, the birds were silent, and the distant sounds of the forest felt oppressive. Adrian moved swiftly, his eyes scanning every corner, his every step measured and precise. Lily followed close behind, clutching their son tightly in her arms, determined to keep him safe no matter what. They moved quickly, heading for the car parked in a secluded area, hidden from view. Adrian took the driver's seat, while Lily climbed into the passenger seat. She didn't look back as they drove, the cabin disappearing in the rearview mirror, a symbol of everything they had tried to hold on to. As they left the woods behind, the landscape became unfamiliar, the roads winding and isolated, but it was their only option. Adrian glanced over at Lily, his face hard, but there was a flicker of something softer in his eyes. "We'll be okay," he said, though the words sounded more like a reassurance to himself than to her. Lily looked at him, her heart heavy with uncertainty, but she nodded. "We have to be," she replied, her voice firm. They drove through the night, never staying in one place for long, always moving, always looking. Over their shoulders, Adrian's contacts had arranged a place for them to hide, a safe location that even his enemies wouldn't be able to find easily. They arrived just as the sun was beginning to set, the quiet house nestled in a remote area, far away from the city, far away from the life they had once known. As they settled in, Lily felt the weight of exhaustion pressing down on her. She had fought so hard to protect her son, to build a life that was safe and free from the dangers of Adrian's past. But now, all she could do was hope. Hope that they would find peace, hope that Adrian could truly leave his past behind. As she tucked their son into a small bed in the corner of the room, she kissed his forehead, her heart filled with love and fear. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she would do whatever it took to keep him safe. Adrian stood by the door, his back to her, his gaze distant as he looked out the window, ever watchful. Lily walked over to him, her eyes softening as she placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll get through this," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. Adrian turned to face her, his eyes full of gratitude and pain. "I won't let anything happen to you," he whispered. "Not again." Lily nodded, knowing that their future was uncertain, that the danger was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew they would face it together. Whatever happened, they would survive, because they were a family, and nothing, not even the past, could break them apart. In this gripping tale, the world of vampire stories takes a dark and captivating turn as a powerful vampire king returns to reclaim what he lost, only to find himself entangled in a web of danger and betrayal. As the past catches up with him, he must face the consequences of his decisions, all while trying to protect the woman he loves and their son. Set in a world filled with mystery and suspense, this story delves into the complexities of love, trust, and the shadows of the past. The characters navigate through intense challenges, each moment pushing them closer to the edge as they battle against powerful enemies and their own insecurities. With danger lurking around every corner, they must rely on each other to survive. As the stakes rise and secrets are revealed, this tale of love and survival unfolds in a way that will leave readers hooked. If you are a fan of vampire stories that blend heart-pounding action with deep emotional moments, this journey into the supernatural world is sure to captivate your imagination. Follow the characters as they navigate through dark twists and turns, fighting for their lives and the future they desperately want. From the moment the first secret is revealed, this tale grips you tightly and never lets go, making it one of the most exciting vampire stories you'll ever encounter.